It's the Kink Consultant Podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Kink Consultant. This is a special in-person episode with my friend Miz Darling.
Hello.
And not just friend, but we are co-authoring a book, which is so weird to even say right now. This has been on your mind for a really long time, right?
Yes, yeah. It was kind of spontaneous. I had this idea and I was floating it around for a while, wondering when I was going to have time to get it started. And then the first time we ever met, we're talking for like an hour. You had heard about the book project from a friend and you're like, I love this. I'm like, well, you want to help me co-write it?
I had heard from multiple people, you have to meet Miz Darling, you have to meet her, you have to meet her. And I was like, okay. And then comically, truly, every time I'd walk up to see your partner or any of our mutual friends, they'd be like, you just missed her. And I'd be like, at this stage, I don't even want to meet her. It's a bit that I keep missing her.
Didn't we have rooms across the hall at one of the parties?
Yes, we did.
And we like waved one time. We were like, okay, we're going to bed. Bye.
Yeah. And also, I felt like your group was the cool kids.
They are. And so are you.
Now I am. But I was like, oh, I want to be in that room. So I manifested myself into the group.
Here you are. Here you are.
We are on a kinky holiday weekend together with a big group of friends.
Amazing people. I and that we, because you know a lot of the people here.
Absolutely, but I feel like you genuinely did bring us all together for this trip. You coordinated it. You reached out to everyone. You made it happen. But yeah, I heard you were writing a book, and I'm going to be very real with you. I was not jealous that you were writing the book. I was on myself being like, Amanda, you should be writing a book. You're not doing enough. I calmed myself down. I said, Amanda, it's wonderful that this is going to be in the world. Enjoy that. And what would you hope for this book? When I met you, I said, please just show honest representation of how much people sacrifice sometimes. So before we even talk about the book, I want to ask you, how do you define a fetish?
The metaphor that I always think of when I'm explaining kink versus fetish is if you are a kinkster, it's kind of like a wide, shallow pond full of diverse life, and there's things to explore, and there's lots going on. And fetish is like a well. There's not a lot in it, and it goes all the way down deep. It's a core need. Like, I think for most of us, it's the core of our sexuality. It's what we're thinking about that gets us to orgasm, and it's part of our identity. And it's fixed. Most people will say it started in childhood. It doesn't go away, even though sometimes in difficult periods of our life we wish it would. It's here to stay.
Oh, yeah. The well versus shallow pool is such a good, beautiful image of what it's like. Because I'm kinky, but I also have a fetish.
Yes.
Just one. And it's exactly like you described.
Yeah, I would say I am too. Yeah.
A lot of us are kinky, but also have a fetish. But then also there are groups of people who literally just have their fetish and that is it.
My partner and I always conceive of it as having like two slots. If you have a fetish, it's like fetish is the second slot vanilla, like fetish vanilla, where it's like, I'm a fetishist, but I also like vanilla sex and like I can enjoy that. Or is it fetish kink, where it's like, I have a fetish, but I'm also, the other slot's kink. And I assume people can have all three or can be just fetish.
That's a great question and qualifier because I'm definitely fetish kink.
Me too.
And the idea is I don't think I'm kink fetish because fetish really has to come first and foremost.
Yes, I would agree with that too.
There are many different examples of fetishes that people have, and we talked about a couple of them over the weekend. There's foot fetish is a really popular one everyone hears about. It's almost mainstream now because it's joked about so often. It is really common too. I've heard of choking fetishes, and it's about the placement on the hand and the restriction.
Yeah, there's armpit fetish.
There's bug fetish. I've dealt with that.
I would say like giantess or giant woman or vor.
Yes, I've been a giantess for someone.
Oh, you'd be great at that.
Yeah.
I would also be great at that.
You would actually be great. It took a lot of imaginary camera work for me to be a giantess. Like, I don't think the person could have gotten close to the ground. Actually, on this point, what's interesting about fetish is I think for kink, it's highly sexualized and there's a lot of sexual undertones in any imagery of kink. With fetishes, and you can find this on Instagram, just people holding balloons. And if you know, you know, I'm like, oh, this is fetish content. There's also a lot of images of women crushing little cartoon men with their large legs on Instagram. And I'm like, oh, this is fetish content, but it goes well under the radar.
Absolutely. And I would definitely say, like, again, I work as a pro-dominant. I love fetish, even if it's not my own fetish. I just love it as a general thing. But I always say, I love that so much of what I do for work is so weird that you could show it on TV and people would not think this is sexual. people. And I always talk about, I'm like, if you're out here, I want to meet a guy whose fetish is watching me eat ice cream in a raincoat and having it drip all over me. And it's probably like, no, it has to be a yellow raincoat, and I want it to be this particular brand of chocolate. If you're out there, come see me, because I will make that happen for you.
I know that person is out there. And what's interesting, though, is now that you've said it like that, that's about to be someone's kink, which,
love it.
Like, that can happen too. Something becomes something that they are into even temporarily, and they're like, oh, this is something I want to experience and it's going to get me off, but it's still not a fetish.
Yes. And even certain things, like, I always thought that foot had to be a fetish, but foot is a kink. My content that I make is primarily spanking or foot and nylon content, and because that's what I'm putting out all the time, I've had a lot of people into spanking who are like, hey, can you spank me barefoot, so that, like, I've become more interested in feet since watching your content. And I just never hit me that a foot fetish you could have a foot kink instead of a foot fetish.
Oh, that's a really good point. Nylon kink is really common. I heard someone talk about this. I wish I could remember where, but essentially the idea is it used to be really common in generations before us, because the first time young boys or men were introduced to femininity, it was seeing their sisters or their mother's nylons drying somewhere in the house, and then that exposure was like their first association with femininity, and then they became into it. Mm-hmm. I think kinks go in waves.
I can believe that, yeah.
Like, we are in the era of cuckolding. Well, where it just like is held on in the mainstream. I feel like I know so many people now who, they don't openly talk about it, but then you get into a slightly in-depth conversation, they're like, oh yeah, I used to do that for a boyfriend. I'm like, really? Tell me more. Whereas I think even 10 years ago it wouldn't have been as common.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Like, you can see how society informs these things in the same way. There's a really interesting, super off topic, but there's an article about how things that were going on at the time influenced what was popular in horror. Like how, for example, in the 90s, the introduction of the 24-hour news cycle made serial killers. You look at back in the movies, it's serial killers. That's the big thing. Pandemics, zombies. Like, it goes in this. And I wouldn't be surprised if societal and political things affect the fetish trends. Women becoming much more empowered and not needing sex from men as a transactional thing has a lot of power over men, and I think that gets represented in fetish or kink sometimes.
Oh, I would really see that. In the United States, so I can't speak for anywhere else, there was a left-right divide. There always is, but the right was calling the left cucks all the time. Mm-hmm. And then that word, and standing for a cuckold, that word made it into the mainstream. And I think that also helped move things along a little more, because it's like, well, what is a cuck? Oh, that exists? Mm-hmm. Let's be more interested in it. Sometimes it's just knowing something exists, and that gets people.
But also, like, cuckolding can be so much about shame. Like, that's a sexual element of it. So having it be this thing that, like, people are going to call you and whatever just makes it more erotic, I can imagine.
And that's a good point. I always describe the difference between cuckolding and hot wifing, because they're essentially very similar. Hot wifing, and if you just wrote down on paper what it is, factually, the woman is going off and being with another man. It's the elements of shame that make it cuckolding versus hot wifing.
Yeah, in the same way that, like, feminization versus sissification. One is about shame and one is about getting to explore your feminine side.
Yes, exactly that. I love how, as we try and explain it, we accidentally make it slightly more complicated. We're like, wait, what? These are two different things? Yes, but these are the questions I get asked really often. Like, well, what's the difference between these two? I get people get really offended that I'm using gender or referring to gender at all for some of these kinks. And I'm like, well, specific kinks are gendered. Like, there is nothing that I can do to fix that. I guess bimbofication can happen for any gender, but sissification tends to be for a man or someone assigned male at birth. That tends to be it, and it's part of the shame.
And it's politically incorrect for sure, but this is part of what makes the fetish interesting. Like, we're taking these toxic cultural ideas that boil down to something we've found interesting and pleasurable. Just trying to sort out the political correctness of kink is always just a nightmare.
Yeah, because part of it is just built in that it's going to be incorrect.
Yeah, and it comes up all the time when I do content. Start doing spanking content and you will realize how much disciplinary language is gendered. I really have to pick, are you a naughty little boy or girl? And I've played with a trans bottom who goes as they, but for the sake of the play, switches to, I'm a boy in this scene, because nobody wants to be a naughty little they. Yeah. And I love that line.
That's really good. I make social media content and I just insert good sub, but that's when you're making spanking content, it's not always, they're not subs.
We want the language. We want the young lady, young man, little mister, all that.
Oh, I love a young lady. Yeah. Like, that's my thing. I don't get called young lady enough, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, the language is really important, and that's why it's so specialized to the person.
Yes. Yeah, and it's why it's important to ask questions and be like, hey, like I asked people, especially trans people that I play with, what language would you like me to use for this scene? Is it okay? Like, what feels good to you?
On this point, now that we're talking about language and what feels good for you, what are the most common types of fetishes you are hired for or asked to make content for? What is your specialty, if any? Are you craving deeper intimacy and the freedom to explore your desires without shame? Do you feel nervous bringing kink up with your partner? Or maybe you're curious to start but don't know where to begin? That's exactly where coaching comes in, and I've helped countless couples and individuals navigate kink in their lives and relationships. Book your consult today at amandadames.com and let's make your desires feel doable.
Well, to keep this sustainable for me, that I don't burn out, I keep my scope limited. So I only do spanking content, foot content, and nylon content. But for sessions, I will do a wider range of things. But I will say it becomes a feedback thing. Like, I got in as a spanko coming into this scene. It makes sense that spanking is going to be a very popular thing for me. It's my mother language. It's what I make content for. It's very popular. And there's just not that many doms who are spanko specific. Foot is just popular in general, and I don't mean to brag, but I have quite attractive feet.
You do have attractive feet. It was one of the first things I noticed because I used to be a pro as well. I always look at women's feet to think like, oh, you would have made bank, you know? Now, luckily, I find that men are not super, even I hate my own feet, but men tend to love them. I started to love my own feet by being a dominatrix because people would be like, oh, I love your feet and obsess over them. And then I fell in love with my own feet. But yours are objectively beautiful feet across the board. Women everywhere would also love your feet.
Yeah, well, I feel foot fetish is so interesting in that there's so many different types, there's so many specifications that no matter what your foot is, probably there's a group of people out there that think that your foot is the hottest foot. But yes, I will say that I have like the Disney princess, except for how large they are, but we'll go with the Disney princess drawing foot.
Yes, actually, I'm looking at them right now. I know people are probably very jealous. I am looking at them, and they are the Disney princess feet.
And it's so funny because it took a foot fetishist telling me that my feet were pretty. It would be like someone, I always say it's like someone telling you, you have beautiful ears, you should be an ear model. And I'm like, really? What? Okay. I don't know what the criteria is for beautiful ears. I do have to do a lot of negotiation when I'm doing foot scenes about, do you like them clean or dirty? Are there nail polishes that turn you off or on? Is there, like, some people are very specific.
Does anyone ever ask you, can I paint your toenails?
Not yet, but I'm sure it'll come up at some point.
Yeah, it probably will. No one's asked me that, but I always think if I had a foot fetish, what would I want to do? And I would want to enhance them myself.
Interesting.
All right, so let's get back to the book.
Yes.
Tell me about the book.
So this book project, we're doing a book on stories, real life stories of fetishists in romantic relationships, romantic and sexual long-term relationships.
What's a long-term relationship in your mind?
I'm thinking, we're going to have a conversation about this at some point, but I'm thinking anything 3+ years, but the longer the better for the sake of the data.
I always think 5+ years is actually a long time because that's when you're like, pardon this wording, but like you've worked out a lot of the kinks in the relationship.
Yes.
And then you're really deepening your relationship with someone. And I think that's when you really get into the nitty-gritty of things. Not that people don't do that within 6 months. For some people, they move really quickly. But yes, I would say 5 years. But 3 is a good foundation of like, yes, definitely at least 3.
Yeah. And the book is called Complicated Pleasures. It's going to be called Complicated Pleasures. And that is because having a fetish is just one more complex factor that you have to take into account when you're choosing a romantic partner, or like a long-term life partner or sexual partner, whatever it is. And I get asked all the time, I'm sure you do too, if you have a fetish, what is the best path for you? Should you only try and date other fetishists, or is that too small a pool? Maybe it would be better if you just found someone you're life compatible with and tried to make that piece work on the side, either in the relationship or with other play partners or professionals. Or is it better to be poly? And is it more difficult for other people? Do male submissives have a harder time? Is it less likely they're going to find partners that are fetish matches because female dominants are harder to come by? Or is that even true? Anyway, my answer to people is always, I know fetishists making it work in long-term relationships in all of these different situations. But whereas there are relationship books out there for people who have different political views than their partners or cultural things that don't match up, we don't talk about fetish. You don't go to your girlfriends and say, my partner has a fetish and I don't understand. Help me out. Give me advice. We don't talk to our friends. There's a lot of stigma. There's no resources. So I've had the benefit and you've had the benefit of being in the kink community and hearing these stories. And we want to take those stories and bring them into wider mainstream culture and make them available to people and accessible.
Exactly, all of that. Yes. So when I found out about this book, I was very excited, but also like, damn, this is the best idea I've ever heard. Because one of the things I always know is when people ask me that question, I always think about how a vanilla person's advice is just find a good person, and if they love you enough, they will meet this need for you. And that's sometimes how it works, but not always. And I love that this book is going to explore all of the other ways that people have made it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Also be a resource for vanilla or normative sexuality people who are in love with fetishists and are wondering, is this going to work? Can I make this work? Can this be a long-term sustainable thing? There's no resources for people like that.
No, every so often, and I probably feel like I've read them all, there is a blog post somewhere. And it gets sent around to everybody who has the fetish and their partner doesn't. So you read them about chastity, some about spanking, of a partner who is trying to explain, what I say, a non-kinky partner who is trying to explain to people, hey, maybe you should try it because this is what I learned it means for my partner. And sometimes some people just have the right words to explain it.
And when I say that, when we have people in all different of those situations, fetishists with normative sexuality people and other fetishes and that sort of thing, we also hear stories about relationships that worked in those situations and relationships that didn't work in those situations. And I think it's really interesting. Is there stuff in common? Are we going to find out that fetishists who make it work with vanilla partners, are they doing something right? How are they making it work with these people? What qualities do their partners have that are contributing? What are these factors that make some of them work and some of them not?
All true. What I love about this is you're putting something into the world that is a resource you would have looked for yourself.
Yes, and that is the feedback I've gotten whenever I talk about this with people in the kink community, especially young people who are starting to look for relationship partners, and they say, I need this book now because I'm going through this now and I need advice.
I know, and that sometimes I'm like, we need to get on this so much faster, which we will, and I know you're already doing such great work, but when I heard so many people, you are very popular in the scene and everyone is really excited about this, so many people were coming to me and telling me, oh, you have to meet Miz Darling, you have to meet her because she's writing this book and she would love to talk to you. And equally, I wanted to talk to you as well.
It's so funny finally getting to meet you because it had been probably a year or more of missing each other at national parties and having friends in common that say, oh my God, you guys haven't met, you're gonna love each other, you're so alike and have so many things in common, and you're gonna be instant friends. And there was even a party where our rooms were across the hall from each other and we kind of waved at I'm like, good night, oh, I didn't get to meet you, maybe tomorrow, and we just kept missing paths. And so I think we actually made a coffee date where we're like, hey, everyone says we're going to be friends. Would you like to get together and have coffee at this party? And I came to your room, we just had some coffee, and we just started talking. You had already heard about this book project, and within an hour of you expressing interest, I think I invited you. I'm like, do you want to help me write it?
And I was shocked. I had never expected. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a dream come true because I was so excited for it, and then to be invited to be part of the project was so unexpected. I didn't even have to take a second to say yes. I think I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it was clear to me that like you are somebody, this kind of work that you do and the way you think and speak and write, I'm like, this is somebody who brings the energy I'm looking for onto this project. And the reason this is not getting done is because I'm busy and I need help. So if you come on in any capacity, this will actually get done.
I know. And I think we've moved forward.
Yes.
Because of that.
Yes.
We have a social media page. We have a website.
We do.
We
are taking in interviews to be case studies in the book.
So what do you look for from the case studies?
To a certain extent, I think we're being pretty open-minded about, like, come to us and tell us your experience, and we'll see if we can find a way to make that fit in the book. But I'd say we're primarily interested in stories of not casual dating or one-night stands or, like, a 6-month to 1-year relationship, but, like, a fairly stable long-term relationship that is either ongoing right now or is a past relationship that you had an experience and learned something from, and where at least one of the people in that relationship had a fetish.
And I think that's an important point. It can also be a past relationship.
I think we also said a fetish, or you're so hardwired for power exchange, even if it's not a specific fetish, if you're so hardwired for power exchange that that's the core of your sexuality, you fit in this book too. Like, we're talking about you too.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Because that is one of the ones that's slightly harder to bucket.
Yes.
because it's also a difficult one to explain to a partner, especially if you are so deeply, I think, dominant or submissive. To invite someone into that power exchange, there's a lot of negotiation and energy that has to go into explaining what it is and how to operate in that dynamic.
Yeah. If you're the type of person that's like, I'm kinky, but I don't need this in my sexuality, I can make it work with a vanilla partner. It's not that much of a problem. That's not the story we're looking to tell, because we've both been in the experience and have talked to so many people in the experience of, I can't shut this off. It's the core of my sexuality. I'm stuck in this situation where I need this. How do I make that work in a relationship, that component of myself work with a partner?
What has your personal experience been like with a dynamic like that, having a fetish and being in relationship?
So I got married fairly young, married my high school boyfriend, which I do not recommend doing because you change a lot as throughout your 20s, but lovely person. I've been always very open about my sexuality, and I confessed to him at, like, I was age 15, confessed to him that I have a spanking fetish. I just thought, I have somebody who's willing to try to accommodate me and who understands what fetish is. This is the best I'm going to get, and I can make this work.
Was it easy to accommodate each other?
I was able to fulfill his needs. He was not able to fulfill mine. And I don't think it would have mattered what level of performance he gave. I think it's just when you have masochistic desires and you want someone to do unpleasant things to you because they want to do it, and that's the motivation, it's hard to find fulfillment from a partner who you know is doing this for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm slightly masochistic, and I talk about it as being devotional, but you can't be devotional to someone who is just running through those motions. Okay, and was that the reason it didn't work?
Yes, it was a very functional relationship. We deeply respected each other. We reached a point at which I knew that I needed to start exploring this with other people. That was really important to me. And he was a wonderful person who opened up the relationship and let me start exploring in the scene and having these experiences with other spankos. But it quickly became clear to me. I ended up falling in love with one of my play partners. Nothing happened that wasn't allowed and negotiated. We never went down that road. But I quickly realized that this is kind of my love language. This is, when people say making love, I never understood what that meant until I had a spanking experience that felt like making love. And I thought, great, just one more thing I can't have in my relationship unless I'm with somebody who speaks this language. And I thought to myself, you do not reward a partner who is so wonderful to let you explore in this space. You don't reward that partner by waiting until you fall in love and are going to leave him for somebody else. Nothing ever happened with that person, but that was the sign that I need to get out of this marriage because it's already going to be horrible enough the way it's going to go shake down, but he doesn't deserve to wait until I'm in love with somebody and leaving them.
Wow, that is beautiful and mature and so deeply loving to end something in that way.
Well, that narrative helped me a lot as I was getting divorced, but the reality of it is that it's just hard. Like, I think he was much more willing. He's like, well, why don't we go poly? Why don't we open up the relationship? Why don't, he was willing to make a lot of compromises to make this work, and I just didn't want to go there with him. Ultimately didn't think it was sustainable to do that.
For you.
For me, yeah. I'm not happy about his experience in all of this, but I just don't know what other option realistically there was for me.
I think that's super relatable for anyone who has to be the one who ends things or makes the difficult decision that it needs to end.
Yeah.
During that time, did you resent or hate your fetish for being the catalyst for all of this?
I think I did earlier in the relationship before I started exploring it. Like most of us, there have definitely been periods where I'm like, I wish I could cut this part of me out because it would make my life so much easier and simpler. But by the time I started exploring it, it had already made me feel stronger. It had had benefits. I'd met amazing people. I'm like, I can't regret this. And like, what had felt like a curse most of my life was finally feeling like a blessing. So I was sad about the way it shook out, but I had stopped wanting to change this about myself.
It does bring so many gifts that it can feel like a blessing, but I've definitely had these moments of thinking this fetish is ruining my life. Like dramatic, melodramatic.
Yeah.
But I've had it in moments of divorce, breakups, like certain things of I just need it so much. But each moment was a learning opportunity and got me closer to what now turns out to be one of the best gifts I have in my life.
Absolutely. And the fact is, I had a moment after the first time I played with somebody where I was driving the car and I could just think, why didn't I do this years ago? And I was just so angry. I was overcome with rage at myself for like, why did I ever try to hold this back? It's such a good thing for me. And the fact is, I like who I am when I embrace my sexuality. I think I'm a stronger, better person. Ooh, getting emotional.
Yeah.
I think I'm a stronger, better person for embracing this.
I know. I think that about Most of us.
Yes, and I get to witness it all the time with people that either people who are new to the scene or people that clients of mine that I do sessions with. There is a blossoming that happens that you can watch in somebody when they embrace this side of themselves and they finally a part of them stops hating it and starts enjoying the thing that you're wired to enjoy. And it's magic. People come back to life like a tree in the spring.
It really is. It is magic because for the first time in their lives, they're getting to explore something that they thought it was like a fantasy that they would never have. And then they realize, wait, this all exists. All of this can be a reality if I'm willing to step into it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then to me, I always try and explain to people that is community. That is what we're all showing up for. That's what we're contributing to. And there is an element of when you get to witness two people come into the scene and experience it, and you almost feel maternal or sort of like one of the old witches or something being letting us show you the way. And I get excited when young people come into the scene because I'm like, oh, if only. So I get really excited for them because they're going to have this life opportunity and they're going to know themselves, what I sometimes imagine as so much better than I did or so much faster in their lives.
That said, I'm also really excited when old people come into the scene. I had a client who got spanked for the first time. He was in his 80s and we did a session. And I'm just like, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you get to have this experience and find this part of you. It's never too late.
It's never too late.
But yes, that does come with a lot of regrets about why did I wait so long?
I know. And I think because I started off really exploring this as a dominatrix, I was getting all of the people who were in their 50s and 60s and coming for the first time or had just started exploring. Mm-hmm. Whereas seeing people get to live the lives that my clients wish they'd lived was exciting to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spankos are under the umbrella of BDSM, but sometimes neither side accepts each other, right?
Yes.
And one of the things is spankos tend to be a lot more, in my experience from what I've seen at the beginning, heteronormative, as in what you just described. But then as people stay in the scene longer, you just sort of see more diversity in how people are exploring.
Well, I think a lot of us are attracted, traditional spanko fantasy is very normative and traditional.
Yes. I mean, that's what it is. And people ask me, because I have a video on FetLife of just getting a paddling from a friend. And instead of even using a safe word, I just say, I need a second. And someone asked me, why didn't you use a safe word? And I said, the scene is domestic. Yeah. So it's not that I couldn't use a safe word. We do. But equally, we just have these moments of, it's, again, our own language.
Yeah.
And the way I relayed that was a version of a safe word for us.
Absolutely. And a good top knows how to stay in the scene in the same way that you would if it was a domestic punishment, where it's like, okay, I'll give you a minute, but you are going to take the rest of your punishment. You can stay with it.
Yes, exactly. And luckily I got a minute because I needed it. Okay. How can people be involved or follow this project?
So right now we are in the interviewing stage where we are looking for people with stories to share about their relationships. And we have a website, complicatedpleasures.ca, because I am Canadian. It is a Canadian website. But there is a link to a Google form that we ask some basic questions, and you can tell us a bit of information about your relationship, current or past, and we will sift through that information and see if you're a candidate for someone we want to hear more about in this book. And then we'll contact you for an interview. At this stage, we're really just accepting submissions to be case studies, and we're getting started into the interviewing process and collecting stories. There's also on our website a link to the newsletter and to our social media accounts, which is helpful if you want to sort of follow us along as we're going through this process or pass it on to people. The quality of the book will depend so much on the quality of interviews we get, the qualities of stories that we get. So one of the most helpful things people can do is to share this project, put it out there on their social media or pass it on to their sex therapists or sex store owners or friends in the community or community groups. The more this gets out, the more it really does become a community project because it involves the whole community. And it has stories from the whole community.
And can the interviewees be anonymous?
Absolutely. I think that's a crucial part of this. Both anonymous in terms of, yes, we're not going to use your real name in identifying details, but also anonymous within the scene, because a lot of people are so well known. It's a small scene. We are going to have to change some identifying details of people's relationships because it's such a small scene that, for example, we'll probably get a lot of interviews from Spankos because that's just the community that we're both kind of wired into. But we are accepting interviews from anyone who identifies as a fetishist of any kind or hardwired for power exchange. Because couples within the Spanko scene, Spanko couples, are fairly rare and recognizable. We will be changing details so that even if you're a member of the community or widely known, you shouldn't expect that your friends are going to say, hey, I read what you said in the book.
We will work really hard to make sure that we accommodate anyone's need for privacy.
Absolutely.
Like, we fully understand the importance of that.
We're asking people to be really vulnerable and honest and share this information with us for the good of the community. The least we can do is make sure that that feels as safe and private as possible.
Like, making sure everyone feels safe in their vulnerability.
Absolutely.
That's the core of Kink.
That is the core of Kink. Yes.
It's going to be the core of this book, too.
Yes.
If you want to follow along, definitely go to the website and check out complicatedpleasures.ca to read through more in depth about the project and see where you can follow us on social media. And please get signed up for our newsletter because we're already excited about sharing our journey with you. Ms. Darling, thank you so much for joining me, for organizing this amazing weekend, too. This has been wonderful. I cannot wait for us to get even further on this book together.
Absolutely. The process will be really as amazing for both of us, I think, as the final project.
I agree.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekinkconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.